Welcome to First Things First. I'm Brooklyn. My pronouns are she and her.
Yama, I'm Maddie Mills. My pronouns are he and him. And before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record. For me, it is the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation.
And for me, it's the Ricardo people of the Cooler Nation. And let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
So, someone's looking a bit wiser, a bit more sexier, more juicier.
Oh, you know what? It all comes with age, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know,
Look at you in your wise old age.
29 and feeling fine. Except, I don't know if I believe that you get wiser with age. I'll tell you why. Last night I went out for my birthday. My birthday dinner. It's been my first sober birthday. I'm going to say this on air. It's been my first sober birthday in 13 years since I started drinking. I feel like it's a different me. It's a new me. But I want to talk about last night because my birthday dinner, when you say you're getting wiser, I'm like, I feel so dumb. I literally went out for dinner last night to this restaurant with my boyfriend, and we had been there 6 months prior and we loved it. And we were like, okay, we have to go back here at one point. So I was like, let's go for my birthday. Great. We walk in, we choose the set menu. It's like 8 different dishes. They're coming out one by one. We're enjoying this food. We get to the end and I taste this taco. So it's a Mexican place. I taste this taco and the chicken tastes like it's not cooked. And I was like, wait, is this chicken cooked? It doesn't really taste like chicken. It has that weird texture. And then I said to the lady, I said, is this chicken? And she goes, no, everything is vegan. And I had no idea that we were sitting in a vegan restaurant and we ate vegan food. And I'm so like pro meat, you know, gay.
Yeah.
But like I love my meat.
Gay.
And I just was like, okay, wiser with age. Like I literally had no idea that I was in a vegan restaurant eating vegan food. Props to them.
That
It's
is
Vandal
hilarious.
in Newtown. So like good food, super oily though, but great food.
Yeah, wow. I've tried vegan food once and it did not agree with me, but I have eaten something and not known what it was, and then later been like, oh, I don't know if I would eat that again, knowing what it was. You know what I mean?
Well, look, there were some little hints on the menu. So, like, the tuna was no fin tuna, and I thought that was just a type of tuna. And then the chicken was chick''N, and I was like, oh, that's cute how they spell chicken. And
you thought it was like an old marketing thing. Like
I totally thought that this was just them trying to be cool with their words on a menu. Next minute, I've had a vegan meal for dinner and I've been sober on my 29th birthday. I feel like I'm a changed man.
You're a different version of yourself. Actually,
good.
that takes me back to a video that I made on socials a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I just kept having this like ugly era where I was like, kept looking at myself.
Saw that.
Yeah. And I was like, I hate the way that I look. And then, I think, as you get older, you notice things about yourself. And I try not to pick myself apart, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to, lead by example per se. And that if, I'm teaching other girls to have this confidence, and I don't have that confidence, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess confidence is contextual, but if I'm saying, don't pick yourself apart, and I'm picking myself apart, I'm a walking contradiction, right? So I try not to, but this couple of months, I was just like looking at myself and I was like, I don't recognize her. Like, I don't like her. I don't know her. And then I
Very Mariah Carey of you.
Yeah.
Very white Mariah Carey.
The only thing difference is,
You're
she
black.
white and black. I'm joking.
I can't with you. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I just kept looking in the mirror being like, I don't know who that person is. And then just one morning, I did a therapy session and I kind of expressed this confusion. Yeah. And my psychologist pretty much just like bluntly had said, do you ever just think that maybe you're just a different version of yourself and you've grown so much that the person that you look at now is just not the person that you were and looked at, 10 years ago? A decade ago.
That.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's evolution. It's growth.
Exactly. And I'm like, well, why do I want to be that person as well? Because that girl or that person That girl, actually, she was a girl. I'm a woman now, even though I look like fucking Edna from The Incredibles today.
Girl,
I am a woman. Like, I'm adulting, you know, and...
How did you feel to put that on social media, being that vulnerable?
You know what? I just don't think about anything these days when I'm putting on socials. I just try to be my most genuine self, and if I think I would post it and send it to you, per se, I would put it on socials. Like, I don't
love
try
that.
to blur the lines. Like, of course, we have put our shiny selves on, you know, for show on social media. But I'm learning to just not give a flying...
I am on that same wavelength. Like, recently my social media has sort of gone from being like, you know, shiny pictures and perfect images to me really showing how I truly feel. And the funny thing is that I'm still putting like the shiny image, but then as soon as someone slides across or swipes left, it's like them having insight into how I really feel. And one of those...
I've been loving this, by the way.
Well, the first post that I did was all about representation, because I'm so frustrated I'm 29 now, and I'm continuously fighting for opportunities and reaching out and trying to get, more opportunities, not just for myself, but for First Nations people in media. Yeah. And so I I put up this image and this meme, and I wrote the caption, "How I feel after continuously pushing for more First Nations representation in mainstream media." And then I swipe across, and it's like...
Nobody want to see and do this shit. This shit is nappy and it won't fucking do right. Why do we keep doing that? Like, it's going this way. Like, no, I'm fucking trying to straighten it down. This shit keep going like whoop. Like, no, go do. What the fuck?
Like going like whoop, do do.
Oh my God.
Like, to me, that is exactly how I feel when I'm pushing for First Nations representation. I'm like, I keep on like knocking on these doors and keep on being like, hey, where's the opportunities at? And constantly I'm seeing white people be promoted and put in these positions, and it's frustrating to me. And it's like, how much more do we need to accept in this country that, like, the media is where you're seen and where you're represented, and, you know, if you're just showcasing one demographic in this country, you're really, flexing your white privilege. And
but also, what is that telling young children and the younger generations who don't fit into that demographic or that...
Yeah, that doesn't look like them.
Yeah.
And what I love about podcasting is, if you look across the board in podcasting, I feel like there's an authentic voice on this platform. There is a lot of diversity. But in other areas in media, it really lacks. And I'm talking radio, TV, the arts, not just on screen, but also behind the scenes too, I'm sick of walking into buildings or walking into meetings and having to just be the only person of colour in that room. Yeah. It's happening continuously throughout my career. Whenever I'm seeking an opportunity, it is constantly me going to meet with a white person and appealing to them and asking them for an opportunity. That is legit the experience of mine since I started. Every room that I've walked into that they have the power to make the decision for me to have an opportunity or not is normally a white man. Yeah. And it's frustrating to me.
No, I equally feel the frustration. And I think the previous conversations, I mean, maybe a decade ago or and maybe still now, we're like, people in these mass organizations were saying, oh, like, we don't know any First Nations people who can take these roles. So they didn't, have these roles filled. It's like, well, you don't need a delegated role for a First Nations person. You can, and like, the thing is, there's so many First Nations people out there that you can delegate not just a specific First Nations role to, that they can have and be taking up space in these major roles, these executive roles, or these director roles, and moving into these spaces. I mean, I've been having a lot of these conversations as well around getting on boards and having a voice on boards, because that's where change happens, and that's where your voice is not most heard, because I don't think, there is a place where it's like really taken into consideration all the time. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, fully. Like, I think you have to sort of keep breaking down these barriers, these walls, entering into these spaces, taking up seats. But the best thing about you, and I love this about you, is, one, you call it out, and I think
Yeah.
that's a huge it's admirable because you have the confidence in yourself, your capacity, your strengths, your everything that you like. You're like, well, I deserve this, and I'm like confident in my own capacity and my capability of this type of role, and I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, you know, on the other side of that, I think a lot of First Nations people lack that kind of forwardness and lack that kind of confidence.
I wonder why, you know, like...
Of course, oppression.
Oppression, but also these places aren't, you know, especially in the media, these big organisations that, you know, I'm going and knocking on doors and meeting with big executive producers who have been in their positions for 20 years, you know. I'm talking about white men who have held, you know, this power. It's really hard to go in and pitch yourself as a black fella, especially as a queer black man, you know. And then I
societal
feel like
it's run by patriarchy, right?
Yeah.
And who runs patriarchy?
Exactly. And I feel like it's been like the mission of my life, really, to be able to like just be confident enough to go in. And it's not because I think I'm the best or think that I can do a better job than anyone. It's because I know what is needed for my people to see themselves and to feel proud of who they are. And that's representation. Representation isn't, you know, I always go back to this saying where people say, oh, you can't be what you can't see. You absolutely can be what you can't see. You got to go and do it. So it's much easier when you see it. But if you can't see it and you feel like that, you know, you see an opportunity, go and create that you know, that job, or go and knock on that door so that other people can see it. It makes it easier for them. You don't have to wait for someone else to do it. And that's always been my little motto. But I think representation in, you know, in the media is changing very slowly. It's like every year it feels like, you know, we see more, you know, small steps. But the reason these steps are so small is because people are so scared to relinquish the power.
And power comes from that patriarchy that we were talking about. And that's been when you think of that as a power source in some way, it's very an aggressive and very direct kind of power. Like it's not been very it's been very harmful, I think, is the word. And so I think that's why I think a lot of people like stray away from it, because it's like it's intimidating and they don't realize that they don't realize their own power. But the thing is with power is that there's this really negative stereotype of power because it comes with like arrogance, it comes with manipulation, like it just comes with like these really negative views. But when you look at power and power of good, like let's per se like change it, there's masculine and feminine, I think, of ways of distributing power per se. And I think when women distribute power, like when they I guess like say let's like use the word, maybe it's not enforce, but that type of, or when they I don't know,
use their power.
When they use it. A lot of women have a more subtle approach around using their power. And that, in this subtle way, is like empowering. But it reaches so many more people, right? When a guy or when a man aggressively uses his power, it will reach a certain group of people, but not a lot. It's kind of a scare tactic in some way. This is such a, also this is, power is so nuanced and like can be so, there's so much complexities to it and how you use it for good and for bad. But I think that's what comes into play when First Nations people have, this is what they've been taught, or this is what we've been taught, is that we don't have any power. And so imagine that, and obviously the intergenerational trauma of that. No wonder why people are scared and obviously don't step up and don't take space and are scared to take space, is because that's what we've been taught. And so we need to remove that mentality. That's a limiting belief that we don't need, right? That's stopping us. And like we can look at our history and we can look at it from a perspective like like this is I like don't I use this phrase lightly, but that was then and this is now. And it's an acknowledging where you've come from to where you're going. And I think I use this a lot when I'm speaking to young kids because it's fine to acknowledge where you've come from. And I use this all the time in my day-to-day life because it keeps me grateful and it keeps me humble. But where I'm going is most important right now, right? Where I'm wanting to be is most important.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that all those experiences there, like historically, intergenerationally, is there. No one's going to take that away from me. But I'm going to use those experiences to better myself and to put myself in a position of where I need to go and where I want to be. And people get so wrapped up into then or like where I was and what happened to not where I want to be and where I need to go.
I agree with you. I feel like people live in the past a lot and their past experiences or their past traumas become who they are.
Yeah.
And I feel like over the years I've developed a way of thinking where it's similar to what you just explained, where I've had to come out of that world of thinking that my past experiences or, you know, my experiences through my childhood are who I am now. No,
or
they're
will
not.
stop you.
Or will stop you, but you
like,
can
you know?
use them. You can use them as inspiration and motivation and fuel to the fire to get to where you want to go. And like I've only just started to really unpack that in myself, and that took like therapy to get to that point. Because especially when you're a person who shares your story a lot.
Yeah,
it's living in those moments that can be a little bit, you know, confronting, and also it can hold you down a little bit because you are fighting the belief of, you know, who you are now versus who you were then or what you went through then. And it's like, you're not that person. You're not your past. Your experiences created who you are now, but you can use them for good. And I always see like, especially traumatic events as currency. And why I use currency is because everything has a price, you know. Everything in this world has a price, and whether it's like a sacrifice or I always think of...
It should cost you. Doing day-to-day things should cost you in a way. But
well, I just think that, you know, the traumatic experiences in my childhood and the stuff that sort of made me really resilient has been the way that I've been able to sort of pay for opportunities or get through moments. That's my currency, and it's a weird way to look at it, but I see it as like
it's
fuel
not
to the
weird.
fire currency.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just, and that's the reason why representation to me is so on my heart, and it continues to be no matter what. I always think, you know, one thing that really sticks to me, and it's always been in the back of my head, is that, you know, when you're on the way to the top, or when you're on your way to doing, you know, what you want to do in success, like the fight of like how much do I bring with me, or how much do I go solo and make it to the top and wave from the top of the mountain and tell everyone to come on up. Because like that idea of like you're trying to make it, but you're trying to bring everyone with you, it's fucking hard. Especially
it really
when
is.
You know, when it comes to family.
Yeah.
Like,
we feel I definitely
battle
feel
of-
like you and I feel the weight of that a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, I spoke to about 15-year-old girls on Thursday.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the girls said, like, how do you deal with the pressure or the responsibility that you have to carry that comes from your family?
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I said, I'm still learning this. So it's always going to be a learning journey.
Yeah.
But you also can't take on something that is not your responsibility, and that's taking on someone else's life.
Yeah.
You have to take responsibility for your life and what you do. And yes, you can empower them and bring them up with you, but you don't have to take responsibility for their choices and what they want to do. And 100%. I think for years I definitely did that. The word power came back into my mind because it's like, well, you're using your power to empower other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a difference between using your power just for you and to cause harm, and using your power to empower. And I think that's a difference between good and bad people. You know what that just
reminded me of?
Yeah.
The difference, yes, good and bad people, but also black fellas and white fellas. White fellas never go into a meeting with the hope that they can empower their people outside of that opportunity because they need it? Absolutely not. It's very about themselves. It might be about their family, but it's not about their culture. And this isn't having a go at white fellas, but it's when I walk into a meeting, I'm going in there with the hope that somebody is going to give me an opportunity that then is going to filter down to a community that needs to see themselves in a positive light, because mainstream media for decades have put us in such, deficit when it comes to representing who we are. So like for me, when I go in there, it's like a weight. It's like I'm going in here because I want an opportunity, not for myself so I can walk out of this building and go, you know what, I'm the best, I can do it. No, it's for my family, it's for my community, and it's for black fellows in rural and remote communities where there's a lack of opportunity. It's so much bigger than who we are, It's like if somebody can see on social media or can see on the TV or can hear on the radio or hear a podcast where they see other black fellas talking about their experiences that opens their mind, that creates a bigger world for them, then like we're doing our job correctly. And I don't know if people outside of marginalized communities have that same weight. I really don't feel like they feel that or know what that feels like.
No, I mean, there's some really good programs out there, doing the work that are trying to provide those opportunities, but they're really not noticed or really elevated. And I think we need to do, more of a job as a society, as in government, actually, to support those programs,
policy.
Those grassroots programs, because, that's where the most growth happens. I mean, there's Shooting Stars program that I've been affiliated towards. I can't really say too much about it, but it's a WA program, and they've got 1,200 girls in WA and now into Adelaide who have an opportunity to explore industries, whether that's art, sport, beauty, music, and giving that opportunity to them is to help encourage their dreams and then to inspire themselves to put themselves in those places and spaces that they so wholeheartedly deserve to be in. But if they didn't have those grassroots programs per se, then they would have not really that much opportunity in their towns. And these are all in remote rural areas, by the way. It's the same with my MITS kids having the opportunity to come to Melbourne, getting exposure to all of these crazy and wonderful things that they've never seen before, and learning how to communicate and learning how to deal with the pressures of moving away from home and living off country. Like, that's a lot to take as a kid. But I know that these programs and grassroots programs are going to be so beneficial to their future and their success, because they're getting exposed to so many things, but they're also taking up space where they deserve to be, and they're also meeting other mob and people that have that same that confidence to do that as well, and it's showing them like they can be that. And as I don't really love the saying like you can't be what you can't see, because I have preached that over the time of being the Bachelorette, and I feel like that was just kind of a thing that
it's such a known slogan, and I think it's a bit of a way to block someone from being able to achieve what they want if they can't see it. It's like, absolutely you can be what you can't see. It's much easier when the whole world looks like you, when you're a white person and you're seeing every white person on the front of a magazine, white TV presenter, white radio hosts. It's much easier to see yourself and think, oh, I can do that because everyone is doing it who looks like me.
Yeah,
much
exactly.
easier.
We also know, I don't know if you've ever read into this, but statistically and psychologically, in adolescence mainly, just I'm going to use young people as an example because they're obviously our next future, as much as I would love to take place, I have had my time of taking a lot of space in the Australian media, and I won't ever not stop doing that, obviously, but I feel like I want to inspire the younger generation too, and I think this is more aimed at them, or even, similar age, millennial, whatever, Gen Z. But psychologically and statistically, that when people feel seen and can see themselves in places. So if you want to use the Australian media landscape, or you want to use school, or you want to use community program, or even music, dance, acting, when a young person feels represented on a diverse cultural or even in a body type, then they are less likely to experience less psychological distress, if anything, and they feel seen and they feel heard, and they also feel like they belong, and their identity is actually more like their identity is stronger within themselves, which obviously we know that when your identity is strong within yourself, you're less likely to, feel, not less likely, but you'd probably experience less anxiety and distress and social anxiety. Yeah. And that's all comes down to belonging, and that all comes down to identity and feeling seen in this world. Yeah. And that can be an array of things, but I think representation is a very, very, very powerful tool that we probably don't take advantage of in the Australian media landscape.
Yeah, totally. I think what you see can affect your mental health immensely, and I think that mental health in our community in particular is something that I'm really passionate about. As you can see today, actually, I'm wearing my push-up challenge T-shirt.
Deadly.
I really there's a big focus on mental health for me, but also there needs to be more investment in mental health. But what you see, what you read, how you, articulated within the media as a black fella, all affects how we feel about ourselves. And there's a flow-on effect. But representation, as you said, is something that you and I have, I will say, the power to keep pushing to change. And I think that we do it in our own ways, but some of us are a bit of a hurricane like me. I just go in and ask.
You are like a bull in a china shop is what they would say.
I seriously just don't care anymore. I think what's the worst you can get a no?
This is also the thing, is like, if you don't ask, you won't know.
Yeah.
And I think the fear
is you have to take the leaps of faith sometimes.
Yeah. And, don't believe everything you read as well. I think this is another thing. You can always rewrite your story, your narrative, change the narrative. Like, don't always believe in what everyone else says. You know what? Be Delulu if you really want to.
Live in La La Land.
La La Land.
Literally, it's my 29th birthday yesterday, and I wrote a status saying everything is going to be new. I want new experiences. I don't want anything to be the same. Like, what I mean by that is that I want to experience life differently. You don't have to stay in the same cycle. You don't have to be a stereotype. Push every day to be opposite to that. And that's like my new direction. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm going to keep pushing with the representation thing, and I'm talking like, I really want to do international stuff, because there has to be one black fella who makes it in Hollywood. Like, come on.
Charlie Fraser just made it in Hollywood from Furiosa.
What is she doing?
Well, she was just in the Furiosa as...
There you go.
Yeah, so... And Quaden Bales is in the same movie. And he's a black fella, and he's like 10 years old. Like
100%. So, we need that, international representation where people, outside of our community, that's how they respect people. It's like you make it that big, and then there's respect with that. So it's like, I'm pushing for the fucking stars. I'm going.
I always say, you know what? Shoot for the stars. If you land on the moon, that's still good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's have.
I love that.
Yeah, I feel like so we've just spoken about such important topics, and I feel like this, if you haven't learnt from this episode, I don't know, fuck you. Kidding. No, I guess, I feel like all of our points are valid in that conversation. And if you are a white person, there's more work to be done. And I hope you have been listening, and I hope you have been taking into account what we're actually saying, because you can also contribute and help.
Yeah, and positive discrimination when it comes to employing black fellas is something that I would say is needed. So if you don't think that you need a role, you don't need to specifically advise for, if you're looking to hire someone, look specifically for a person of colour. It'll change your business.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for listening to First Things First. If you love us and like what you hear, leave us a rating and a review.
And if you think that representation is needed, make sure you do the work.
Or if you want us to cover anything.
And if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our socials. Brooke's handle is @Brooke.Blowton. Mine is @It'sMaddieMills. And you can follow all the Nova podcasts over at Nova Podcast Official. All right, you mob. Lots of love.
Bye.